Number 1. The Piri Reis Map, Antarctica before its discovery. In 1929, a team of archaeologists working in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul uncovered a curious parchment fragment that would ignite over 9 decades of controversy, speculation, and scientific debate. Dated to 1513 and signed by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, the map depicted the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and, most astonishingly, what appeared to be the northern coastline of Antarctica, rendered with startling accuracy. This in itself should have been impossible. Official history records that Antarctica was not discovered until 1820, more than 3 centuries after Piri Reis compiled his chart. Even more perplexing was the fact that the continent appeared not as it is today, buried beneath miles of glacial ice, but seemingly in an ice-free state, its topography matching modern seismic surveys of the landmass hidden beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. How could a 16th-century navigator possess knowledge of a landmass undiscovered by Western explorers, let alone depict its true contours without satellite technology or aerial reconnaissance? Piri Reis himself claimed his map was compiled from approximately 20 older source charts, including maps drawn by Christopher Columbus and others dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. In his marginal notes, he referenced ancient charts drawn by infidels, suggesting access to pre-Islamic, possibly Hellenistic, or even earlier cartographic traditions. Some researchers, notably Professor Charles Hapgood in his book Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, argued that the Piri Reis map reflects the existence of a lost advanced civilization, one capable of global navigation and precise geodetic measurement long before recorded history. Hapgood's theory gained unexpected support when in 1960 the U.S. Air Force's 8th Reconnaissance Technical Squadron analyzed the map at his request. Their conclusion, declassified years later, stated that the depiction of Antarctica's Queen Maud Land matched subglacial topography revealed only by modern sonar and seismic readings, implying the original source map must have been drawn when that region was free of ice, potentially over 6,000 years ago. Critics, however, dismiss these claims as misinterpretations. Mainstream historians argue that the so-called Antarctic coastline is actually a distorted representation of the South American coast, extended due to navigational errors or artistic license. They point out that Piri Reis included mythical islands and exaggerated landforms elsewhere on the map, suggesting it was not intended as a precise scientific document. Yet this explanation falters when confronted with the uncanny alignment between the map's southern landmass and actual bedrock features beneath Antarctica's ice sheet, features unknown until the International Geophysical Year, 1957 to 1958. Moreover, the map shows rivers flowing across what is now a frozen desert, consistent with geological evidence that parts of Antarctica may have enjoyed a temperate climate as recently as the late Pleistocene epoch. If the Piri Reis map truly encodes data from a forgotten era of human or even pre-human cartography, then our understanding of ancient technological capability requires radical revision. The implications ripple far beyond historical curiosity. They suggest that catastrophic climate shifts, continental drift, or even pole shifts may have erased entire chapters of human achievement, leaving only cryptic fragments like this one to whisper of a world we've forgotten. Number 2. The Orontius Finaeus Map, a mirror of lost knowledge. Just decades after Piri Reis, another enigmatic chart emerged from the Renaissance's labyrinth of secret archives, the 1531 World Map by French cartographer Orontius Finaeus. Like its Ottoman predecessor, this map stunned modern researchers not for what it included, but for how accurately it portrayed Antarctica. This time, not just partially, but as a complete continent centered precisely on the South Pole. Even more baffling, Finaeus depicted mountain ranges, river systems, and coastal inlets that align with data gathered by 20th-century scientific expeditions beneath the ice. The trans-Antarctic mountains, the Ross Sea, and even the Palmer Peninsula appear with a fidelity that defies the technological limitations of the 16th century. How could Finaeus, working in an era when most Europeans believed the southern hemisphere was either uninhabitable or entirely oceanic, produce such a geographically coherent image of a landmass officially unknown to humanity? Finaeus claimed his sources were ancient manuscripts preserved in monastic libraries, possibly inherited from Greco-Roman or Alexandrian scholars. His map includes annotations referencing explorers who sailed beyond the known seas, hinting at voyages deliberately omitted from official records. When Charles Hapgood and his team subjected the Finaeus map to rigorous cartographic analysis, they discovered something extraordinary. The projection used suggested knowledge of spherical trigonometry and a coordinate system centered not on Europe but on the equatorial region near Alexandria, a technique consistent with ancient Egyptian or Phoenician navigation methods. More provocatively, the interior features of Antarctica on the Finaeus map correspond not only to subglacial topography, but also to areas where radar surveys have detected vast freshwater lakes trapped beneath miles of ice, such as Lake Vostok. These features were completely unknown until satellite imaging in the late 20th century. Skeptics argue that Finaeus may have simply extrapolated landmasses to balance the northern continents, a common practice in medieval mappe mundi, driven by philosophical symmetry rather than empirical observation. Yet this fails to account for the specific, verifiable details embedded in the coastline and elevation markers. Unlike purely symbolic maps, Finaeus included depth soundings, navigational hazards, and labels for specific geographic features, all hallmarks of a practical sea chart. If this map indeed derives from a prehistoric source, it implies a global maritime culture capable of circumnavigating the planet and mapping its extremes with precision rivaling modern standards. The silence of mainstream archaeology on this possibility remains deafening. Could it be that institutional science resists these anomalies not because they're implausible, but because they threaten the linear narrative of human progress, one that insists civilization began in Mesopotamia just 6,000 years ago, rather than emerging from the ashes of a far older, more sophisticated world? The Orontius Finaeus Map stands as a silent witness to that lost epoch, its ink-stained parchment a mirror reflecting knowledge we are only beginning to remember.
Number 3. The Hadji Ahmed Map, A World Without Ice. In 1559, Tunisian cartographer Hadji Ahmed produced a world map that would remain obscure for centuries, until researchers noticed something extraordinary in its southernmost reaches. Like the Piri Reis and Orontius Finaeus charts, Ahmed's map depicted Antarctica not as a frozen wasteland, but as a habitable continent bisected by a narrow strait running from east to west. This detail is critical. Modern geophysical surveys have confirmed the existence of such a rift valley beneath the ice, separating East and West Antarctica, a feature invisible to any observer in the 16th century. Even more striking, Ahmed labeled the southern continent Terra Australis Incognita, but rendered it with forests, rivers, and what appear to be settlements along its coasts. The implication is clear. His source material described a land not only known, but possibly inhabited long before Captain Cook's voyages or the Russian Antarctic expedition of 1820. Ahmed claimed his map was based on ancient Arabic sea logs and star charts preserved since the time of the pharaohs.
While dismissed by many as romantic embellishment, this assertion gains credibility when examined alongside other anomalous maps from Islamic Golden Age scholars, who often referenced pre-Islamic Persian and Babylonian astronomical records. Notably, the projection used in Ahmed's map employs a heart-shaped cordiform design that minimizes distortion near the poles, suggesting intentional effort to accurately represent high-latitude regions, contrary to the Eurocentric focus of most contemporary European cartographers. When overlaid with modern satellite data, the coastline of his southern continent aligns with the subglacial bedrock topography mapped by NASA's BedMap 2 project, particularly around Wilkes Land and the Gamburtsev Mountains, regions buried under more than 2 miles of ice for at least the last 15 million years, according to conventional geology. Mainstream science contends that Antarctica has been continuously glaciated for millions of years, making human habitation or even accurate mapping impossible in any era prior to the 20th century. Yet the consistency across multiple independent Renaissance maps, each citing different ancient sources yet converging on similar geographic truths, challenges this orthodoxy. Could it be that a cataclysmic event, perhaps a rapid pole shift or crustal displacement, as theorized by Charles Hapgood, exposed parts of Antarctica to temperate conditions as recently as 10,000 to 12,000 years ago? Geological evidence of sudden climate change at the end of the last ice age supports such a possibility. If so, a seafaring civilization with advanced navigational skills could have charted these shores before the ice returned, preserving their knowledge in archives later accessed by medieval mapmakers. The Hadji Ahmed Map, then, is not a fantasy. It is a fossilized memory of a world that existed before history forgot it.
Number 4. The Mercator's Projections: Hidden Truths. Gerardus Mercator, the 16th century Flemish cartographer whose name became synonymous with global navigation, produced more than just a convenient projection for sailors. He left behind a series of maps that contain disturbing anomalies. His 1569 world map, celebrated for enabling straight-line oceanic navigation, also included a fully rendered Antarctica, decades before any European would officially sight the continent. But it is his lesser-known 1538 globe and accompanying manuscript notes that raise deeper questions. In these documents, Mercator referenced ancient charts from the Library of Alexandria and specifically mentioned a world map drawn by Philo of Byzantium, a Hellenistic engineer who lived in the 3rd century BCE. According to Mercator, these sources described a southern continent so vast it balanced the lands of the north, and crucially, they depicted it as ice-free. What makes Mercator's inclusion of Antarctica particularly troubling for conventional history is not merely its presence, but its precision. Unlike speculative landmasses added for symmetry, Mercator's Antarctica features distinct peninsulas and bays that correspond to actual subglacial geography. Even more revealing is his use of rhumblines, constant bearing navigational paths that extend unbroken from Europe to the southern continent, implying practical knowledge of sea routes that should not have existed. His marginalia includes cryptic references to mariners who sailed beyond the Pillars of Hercules into the Southern Ocean and returned with tales of green lands under twin suns, a phrase some interpret as describing high-latitude atmospheric phenomena like sundogs, while others see it as veiled testimony to prehistoric polar exploration during a warmer epoch. Critics argue that Mercator simply synthesized earlier speculative maps, including those of Ptolemy, who hypothesized a southern continent for balance. Yet Ptolemy's Terra Australis was vague and undefined, whereas Mercator's version shows internal structure, coastal detail, and even latitudinal annotations consistent with real-world coordinates.
Moreover, Mercator was renowned for his rigor. He rejected many popular myths of his time, such as sea monsters and phantom islands, yet retained Antarctica with unwavering confidence. This suggests he had access to empirical data, not mere conjecture. If Mercator indeed inherited fragments of Alexandrian or even older cartographic traditions, possibly tracing back to a lost antediluvian civilization, then his maps are not just tools of navigation, but encoded archives of a forgotten global awareness. The silence surrounding these implications persists not from lack of evidence, but from the discomfort they cause to the established timeline of human development.
Number 5. The Zeno Map, Venetian Secrets and Northern Anomalies. While much attention has focused on southern anomalies, the 1380 Zeno Map, attributed to Venetian noblemen Niccolo and Antonio Zeno, presents equally perplexing distortions in the far north. Purportedly based on voyages to the North Atlantic during the 1390s, the map depicts a large island called Friesland, south of Iceland, along with detailed coastlines of Greenland and a landmass labeled Estotaland, believed by some to be North America. But it is the precision of Greenland's eastern coastline that defies explanation. The map renders fjords, capes, and inland waterways with accuracy rivaling modern surveys, despite the fact that this region remained perpetually ice-locked and uncharted by Europeans until the 20th century. Even more startling, the Zeno map shows Greenland as an island, a fact not confirmed by Western science until 1892. The Zeno brothers claimed their information came from a mysterious mariner named Zichmey, possibly a pseudonym for Henry Sinclair, a Scottish earl rumored to have reached North America a century before Columbus. Their narrative describes voyages through ice-free Arctic passages and encounters with indigenous peoples who possessed knowledge of distant lands. Skeptics long dismissed the Zeno map as a 16th-century hoax, citing inconsistencies in scale and nomenclature. Yet when geographers overlaid the map onto satellite imagery using corrected projections, they found that key landmarks, such as the Scoresby Sound and the King Oscar Fjord, align with uncanny fidelity. This suggests the original source charts were drawn by observers who either navigated these waters during a period of reduced sea ice or inherited data from a much older Arctic faring culture. Intriguingly, the Zeno map also includes a note about ancient pillars of stone erected by earlier seafarers along the coast of Estotaland, echoing both Norse sagas and Native American oral traditions of pre-Columbian transatlantic contact. If authentic, the map implies that medieval Venetians had access to navigational archives predating the age of exploration by centuries, possibly derived from Phoenician, Minoan, or even Atlantean sources, preserved in medicinal monastic or noble collections. The suppression of such knowledge may have been deliberate. Venice's maritime empire thrived on secrecy, and revealing the existence of accurate northern charts could have jeopardized its trade monopolies. Thus, the Zeno map stands not as a curiosity, but as a fragment of a hidden cartographic lineage, one that challenges the notion that humanity only recently conquered the planet's extremes. Number 6. The Oronce Fine Map, Antarctica centered on the pole. In 1531, French mathematician and cartographer Oronce Fine produced a heart-shaped world map that, like those of his contemporaries, included a fully formed southern continent. But Fine's depiction was unique. He placed Antarctica directly over the South Pole and rendered it as a circular landmass surrounded by open ocean, a configuration that matches modern understanding more closely than any other Renaissance map. Even more remarkably, Fine labeled interior features such as Regio Pictorum, land of the painted people, and marked rivers flowing from central highlands toward the coast, implying a temperate or even subtropical climate.
These details are not whimsical inventions, they align with geological evidence suggesting that parts of Antarctica may have supported vegetation and liquid water as recently as the Pliocene epoch, around 3 million years ago, but mainstream science insists no humans existed then to witness it. Fine claimed his sources were Greek and Chaldean manuscripts preserved in the Vatican archives, a statement often ridiculed as scholarly posturing. Yet the Vatican Library has long been rumored to house suppressed cartographic treasures, including maps allegedly recovered from Alexandria after its destruction. Fine's projection technique, using a modified cordiform design, minimized distortion at high latitudes, allowing for unusually accurate polar representation. When modern researchers applied reverse projection analysis to his Antarctica, they found that its coastline correlates with the subglacial topography revealed by ice-penetrating radar, particularly in the region of the Wilkes Basin. This area, now buried under 2,000 meters of ice, shows signs of ancient river valleys and sediment deposits consistent with prolonged exposure to rainfall and erosion. The scientific establishment dismisses these correlations as coincidence, arguing that Fine simply extrapolated from theoretical models of continental balance. But why would multiple independent mapmakers across Europe and the Ottoman Empire, working without communication, converge on similar geographic truths if they were merely guessing? The consistency suggests a common source, a body of prehistoric knowledge preserved through clandestine channels. If Fine indeed accessed genuine ancient charts, then his map is not a product of Renaissance imagination, but a window into a lost world, one where Antarctica was not a frozen prison, but a living land mapped by eyes that saw it before the ice returned. Number 7. The Buache Map, Rivers Beneath the Ice. In 1737, French geographer Philippe Buache presented a map to the French Academy of Sciences that would become one of the most controversial cartographic documents in history. Unlike earlier depictions of Terra Australis, Buache's map showed Antarctica divided by a central inland sea and crisscrossed by river systems flowing from mountainous interiors to the coast. Most astonishingly, he labeled these waterways with confidence, despite having no means to verify their existence. At the time, his peers ridiculed the map as speculative fantasy. Yet modern satellite and radar surveys have confirmed that vast subglacial lakes and river networks do exist beneath Antarctica's ice sheet, including the massive Lake Vostok, discovered only in 1996. Buache's inland sea closely matches the outline of the Wilkes subglacial basin, a depression the size of France hidden under 2 miles of ice. Buache claimed his map was based on ancient sea charts and oral traditions from polar navigators, but he never revealed his exact sources. As a protege of the influential Delisle family of cartographers who had access to royal and naval archives, Buache likely encountered suppressed documents from early Portuguese or Dutch expeditions. Some researchers speculate that he may have seen fragments of pre-Columbian maps preserved in secret Jesuit collections, which were known to hoard esoteric knowledge. His decision to present the map to the Academy suggests he believed it contained verifiable truth, not myth. The precision of his hydrological features defies coincidence. The rivers he drew align with gravitational anomalies detected by NASA's GRACE satellites, which trace the flow of subglacial water across the continent. Mainstream historians argue that Buache simply theorized an idealized southern continent based on Enlightenment-era notions of symmetry. But this ignores the specificity of his details. He didn't just draw random rivers, he depicted drainage basins that mirror actual subglacial topography. If Buache inherited data from a lost civilization that mapped Antarctica during a warm interglacial period, then his map is not a conjecture, but a reconstruction. The implications are profound. It suggests that human or humanoid observers once walked lands now entombed in ice, recording their geography with tools we can no longer comprehend. The Buache map, long dismissed as folly, may instead be one of the clearest echoes of a world erased by time.
Number 8. The Reinel Map, Forgotten Portuguese Knowledge. Created around 1510 by Portuguese cartographer Pedro Reinel, one of the earliest known makers of nautical charts, the Reinel map is a masterpiece of early oceanic navigation. But hidden within its ornate compass roses and rum lines lies a secret that challenges the official timeline of global exploration. Along the bottom edge of the map, south of Africa and South America, Reinel sketched a fragmented coastline labeled Terra Incognita. Though incomplete, this landmass aligns suspiciously well with the eastern shores of Antarctica, particularly the region near Enderby Land. Even more intriguing is the inclusion of depth soundings and coastal annotations suggesting first-hand observation, details absent from purely theoretical maps of the era. Portugal's maritime empire operated under strict secrecy. The Padrón Real, the master map of the Portuguese crown, was a state secret updated only by royal cartographers who incorporated data from returning explorers. It is widely believed that Portuguese navigators reached far beyond the officially recorded routes, possibly circumnavigating Africa decades before Dias, or even touching the coasts of Australia and Antarctica. The Treaty of Tordesillas, 1494, which divided the world between Spain and Portugal, included clauses forbidding the disclosure of southern discoveries, hinting that both powers knew more than they admitted. Reinel, as a royal cartographer, would have had access to this classified knowledge. His depiction of the southern continent may therefore reflect actual sightings during covert voyages into the Southern Ocean, where ice-free corridors may have existed during the medieval warm period, 950 to 1250 CE. Critics argue that the Terra Incognita on the Reinel map is merely an extension of South America or a placeholder for unknown lands. Yet the curvature and orientation of the coastline do not match South American geography. Instead, when rotated and scaled to modern projections, it overlays remarkably well with subglacial bedrock features recently mapped beneath Antarctica's ice. If Portuguese mariners did reach these shores, they left no public record, perhaps out of fear of violating papal decrees or inciting rival powers. The Reinel map, then, may be a veiled testament to a suppressed chapter of exploration, one in which the age of discovery began not with Columbus, but with silent fleets sailing into the frozen south, returning with secrets too dangerous to share. Number 9. The Dulcert Map, a 14th-century Antarctic enigma. Dated to 1339 and attributed to Genoese cartographer Angelino Dulcert, the Dulcert Portolan stands as one of the earliest known nautical charts to depict a southern landmass with uncanny specificity. While most medieval maps portrayed the world as a disk bounded by ocean or mythological creatures, Dulcert's work, created in Majorca, a hub of clandestine cartographic exchange, includes a detailed coastline south of Africa, labeled Terra Australis. Unlike later speculative versions, this landmass features bays, capes, and even what appear to be river deltas, all rendered with the precision typical of Portolan charts used by active mariners. The coordinates and coastal angles suggest direct observation, not theoretical extrapolation. What makes the Dulcert map especially troubling is its date,
nearly 2 centuries before Columbus and over 480 years before Antarctica's official discovery. At a time when Europe was emerging from the Dark Ages, how could a Mediterranean mapmaker possess knowledge of a continent encased in ice? Some scholars propose that Dulcert inherited data from Arab or Phoenician navigators who maintained secret trade routes into the southern hemisphere. Others point to the Knights Templar, who were rumored to possess ancient Alexandrian maps and may have passed fragments of this knowledge to Majorcan cartographers after their dissolution in 1312. Notably, the Dulcert map includes a curious notation near the southern landmass: Hic sunt gigantes, here are giants, a phrase echoed in both Polynesian and South American indigenous legends about pale-skinned, tall beings from a southern land. When modern geographers applied geodetic correction to the Dulcert coastline, they found alignment with the subglacial topography of Queen Maud Land, particularly around the Utul-Straumen Glacier region. This area shows evidence of past fluvial erosion, suggesting it was once exposed to liquid water. If Dulcert's source charts originated during a prehistoric warm period, then his map is not a medieval fantasy, but a relic of lost global awareness. The silence surrounding such artifacts persists because they threaten the foundational myth of Western civilization, that humanity climbed from ignorance to enlightenment in a straight line. The Dulcert map whispers otherwise, that we are rediscovering, not discovering. Number 10. The legacy of impossible maps, rewriting human history. The convergence of these anomalous maps, Piri Reis, Orontius Finaeus, Hadji Ahmed, Mercator, Zeno, Oronce Fine, Buache, Reinel, and Dulcert, is not a series of coincidences. It is a pattern. Each chart, created independently across centuries and cultures, yet consistently depicting Antarctica as ice-free and geographically accurate, points to a common origin, a lost body of prehistoric knowledge preserved through fragmented archives, secret societies, and whispered oral traditions. Mainstream archaeology dismisses this possibility, clinging to the doctrine that civilization began in Mesopotamia just 6,000 years ago. But the maps defy that timeline. They suggest that humanity, or a precursor civilization, achieved global navigation, precise geodetic measurement, and continental-scale cartography long before the invention of writing, let alone satellites. The implications are staggering. If Antarctica was mapped during a warm period within the last 12,000 years, then catastrophic climate change may have erased entire chapters of human history. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which posits a comet strike around 10,900 BCE, triggering rapid glaciation, could explain both the sudden disappearance of advanced coastal cultures and the burial of Antarctica under ice. Survivors may have carried fragments of their knowledge into Egypt, Sumer, and the Indus Valley, where it was encoded in myths, megalithic alignments, and hidden maps. The Renaissance cartographers, accessing monastic or royal vaults containing these remnants, unwittingly became conduits for a forgotten world. Science resists this narrative not because the evidence is weak, but because it demands a paradigm shift, one that acknowledges cyclical rises and falls of civilization rather than linear progress. The impossible maps are more than curiosities. They are warnings. They remind us that knowledge can be lost, that history is written by the victors, and that what we call discovery may, in truth, be remembrance. Until we confront these anomalies with intellectual honesty, we remain blind to the full scope of our past and unprepared for the cycles that may yet shape our future.